Fabian. I was working 15 years as a front-end developer, and 2 years ago I switched my career path because I was a little bit frustrated being a front-end developer, and I didn't want to start drinking tonic at 6 o'clock in the morning. And one of the reasons I made the switch was because I wanted to influence more user experience of our projects. And what was the problem? So as a front-end developer, I was kind of late in the project. And before, there were the designer and the customer, and they came up with the design, figured out something, did a lot of meetings, and decided to do it just like this. But as a front-end developer, you have a different focus on things. So I was sitting there and I had a lot of ideas how to optimize user experiences. But at this moment in time on the project, they don't really care because the time was the issue or something else. So yeah, it wasn't user experience, there were no time. And I was curious how you feel about it, therefore I did a service about user experiences. And I wanted to know how much can you influence user experience in your projects. And I filtered it down to only front-end developers, and the result was, it was a 2.3. So 0 was, I have no influence, and 5 was, I have a lot of influence on it. And yeah, a lot of people voted 0, so this means they have no effect at all on user experiences. Which is quite bad, because the problem is what we are working on is then we have web pages which look good if you have like a premium device. It looks good if you have fast internet, and it's fine if you have a data flat rate and you have to don't care about how much data you shift. So what we are more or less building is like pages like this. So it works pretty good for us. It also works pretty good for our customers because we have all these nice devices, we have the fast internet, and we don't care about how much data we use. The problem is a little bit that yeah, it works for us, but for the most of the people out there, they don't have all these privileges. So for them, it's a really bad user experiences. But for us, it looks good, for the customer, it looks good, so no one really cares about it. What do we need? We need these magic glasses, put it on, and then we see it like our customer seeing it. And therefore, we could keep this and put it on our desk, and before we commit something, we could test it with the magic glasses. So I like them. So I was wondering what factors we can influence to get a good user experience for all the users. And there are 3 factors which play a huge role. The first thing is a viewport. So we have small devices, we have big devices, and we fix it. Or we have responsive web design, so everything works quite fine. But there's another thing, we have the internet connection. So it makes a big difference if I have a slow connection or if I have a really fast connection. But there's not really a good way for developers to figure out what is how is the connection at the moment. So this is not solved yet. And then the next problem is the device. So it makes a huge difference if I am working on my Mac or if I use my phone to go on the website. And it's also hard for developers to detect which is the device or what are the capabilities of the device the user is working on. And I'm a little bit excited because a new day is breaking on. So it looks like this. We need sunglasses because we can fix it now. And I want to talk about how to fix the network and the device. And first I want to talk about the network. And I don't talk about Wi-Fi, I want to talk about 3G, I want to talk about 4G, because this is the hard part. And if you get it right there, it works everywhere. So what is the problem with these devices? The problem is the battery. I guess if everyone looks now, you have 50%. And the radio, what we need to make the connection in this device, is the second biggest power consumer. That's why it's really important to optimize this. And yeah, let's talk a little bit how networks are working. I don't go into deep because I also don't really understand it very deeply. But we have something, it's called the radio resource controller. So this thing is between our device and the network. And this handles how we are connected to the network. It's getting quite complicated, but you don't have to understand this. I just want to know there are two states. It's an idle state and it's an active state. And if I'm an idle state, it only consumes 50 milliwatt. And if I'm in the transmitting state, it's 3,500 milliwatts. So there's a huge difference. And therefore, it makes really sense for the radio controller to get back into idle mode to save energy. And therefore, the radio controller is trying to shift us as fast as possible in the idle mode. The problem is a little bit, if we are in the idle mode and want to get back to active, we need a round trip time. And this is 1 to 3.5 seconds. So if you have the right performance badge, hope a few of you have, you know it's really a long time, 3.5 seconds. So if we lose this for nothing, that's a problem. Therefore, it would be really cool to figure out what network type we are on. Is the guy having a mobile connection or a Wi-Fi connection? And there's good news. It's called the Network Information API. So there are two types, you can't read it. But one thing is type, and you can check if this is a cellular connection or if it's a Wi-Fi connection. It only works, it's quite experimental, I have to be honest. So it only works on Android, Chrome devices at the moment, but I hope this will shift. But if you know you're on a cellular, then what you can do is optimize for it. And there's the second type, it's the effective type. So the problem is if you're on a Wi-Fi, is it fast or not? You don't really know. Or if you're on the 4G, it could be really slow. And what you want to know is what's the effective type. And this is another value, and the browser is checking for you the bandwidth and the latency you have, like the minute before, and gives you, depending on an effective type. So you could be on Wi-Fi, but it says you're on a 2G connection because it's really, really slow. Okay, what is a strategy we should go for if we know we're on a cellular device? And one thing is decouple user interaction from network communication. So this sounds complicated, but I can show you an example and you will understand. So here you see a typical web app. You can like the picture. You see I press a like button, and here nothing happens, and the server is running in the background. And once the server finished its request, it gets back to the browser, and the heart gets read. So if you remember, it could take 3.5 seconds to make this connection, so the user would wait forever for the red heart. We could be more optimistic, and what we could do, the user clicks, we directly do the heart. The server is running still in the background, but in most cases, we have no problem. Probably in 1 from 1,000 cases, this will break, but then we can sorry to this one user, and all the other users have a really good experience. So, one good idea was to put as many data we get, put it down to the phone, and then we go to idle mode. And there's a problem with all the marketing tools popping up. Because what they're doing, they're sending back data all the time. And the problem is they're waiting 10 seconds, sending data, waiting 10 seconds, sending data. And what we are doing, the radio connector has to reconnect all the time. And you can look at your battery and you see it drowning. So, and there's a new API, it's called the Beacon API, which is quite, it's everywhere but Safari, but it's coming soon. And this can be used to send data at the end at once to the server. So this should the way how we do stuff. Another pretty cool thing is predictive preloading. So what we could do is using service workers. There's great news. So I don't know if everyone knew service workers. So this is something next to the browser. It's between the network and the browser. And it can download things in the background and cache it. So for example, I have a website, so a news service, and I know this guy likes sport news. But now he's reading the main article, and in the background, what I can do is I get all the news, sport news, and save them on the disk. So I can cut the connection afterwards, and we are good, so we don't have to reconnect. Here's an interesting JavaScript framework. It's called FutureLink. This is really hard to see, but what it's doing, it tracks your mouse. And if you try to click on a link, what are you doing? You go with your mouse, you go fast, and then if you nearly hit it, you slow down your mouse. And this is what this framework is tracking. So if you slow down, they say, the chances are quite good the user is clicking on this link. And what we can do at this point of time, we can pre-render. This is also a new API. So it's like link, relative pre-render, and we can pre-render this page. It's like if you are in Chrome browser, it's like it's opening a new hidden tab. It's rendering the whole page for you. And if you click on the link, this page magically shows up without loading. So this would be really a wow effect, because you see the page instantly. So now we have a problem a little bit. I guess a few people already think, okay, we are on mobile, makes really sense to send more data than the user is probably seeing. But the problem with mobile connections is not the bandwidth, it's more like the latency. So this is the 3.5 seconds we lose for every connection. But there's one problem is that not everyone has like a contract where you have flat rates. So this is common in Europe, this is common in US, but in a lot of emerging countries, this is not the case. So people are having no flat rates, so they really have to use to pay for the data. And there's one example from India. So if you earn the minimum wage, then you have to work 1 hour to download 6 songs. And if you now imagine you have a marketing page with a lot of huge images, this guy probably has to work 2 hours there to see your website. And that's kind of extreme. So probably if you have a user like this, we don't want to send him more data than needed. What we can do there is also a new thing. It's called client, and it saves data. So you can do it in Google. You have settings. You can say as a user, I want to save data. And if you click this link, then a header is sent to our server. So what we can do, we can, on Akamai, on our CDN, we can say this guy gets a version of our page without images, for example. I guess it hurts the marketing people. What? The images are not there. What we can do is something like this. So we have like a, I will explain it. So we have like a page. We have like, you know, all the cookie layer, right? So we have like a minimum page, and we say in this kind of cookie layer, you can download the full version of the page. We only have the save data page for you because you wanted to have it. But people can still have the full version if they want. Okay, so this, we can make a check mark behind connection. So we solved this kind of. And let's talk about devices. There's a few trends in the world. One trend is mobile only. So we're not mobile first anymore, we are mobile only. So a lot of people who are coming now to the internet, they come to the internet because they can afford a cheap device. So they don't have money for a MacBook, they only have one mobile phone. And there are two groups. So there are the people who, I don't have my phone, but there's iPhone or Samsung things, you pay $1,000 or 900, and you get a really good device. But then there are people, you're getting a device for less than $30 at the moment in India, and they're not the same, definitely, but it's a smartphone and people can go to the internet. But what's the problem? Yeah, this is a little bit complicated. So I run one website on my Mac, and I use this one. That's a cool phone. That's Moto G4. That's a quite old Android device. And in the performance group, so they're using this device as a reference device. This is the average phone device that most of the users have. So I run both against each other, and then I tracked the number. And if you could read the numbers, so it's it needs four times the time on this Moto G4 device running JavaScript, for example, for the same page. And therefore, it's really important. So for me, I would ask all developers to have a setup like this. So you have your display, you have your MacBook, and you have your Android device next to it. And before you commit something, you have a look how this is running on your Android device. And this makes a huge difference. for the users who don't have the Mac. Okay, so how we detect what the device compatibilities are. So this is also something we can't really do in a good way at the moment, but not any longer. So there's this device memory API, and this is also comes with an HTTP header, so you can already decide on the server that you want to serve a small version of the page. And the device memory API gives you back the gigabyte of RAM of the device. There's another thing, it's hardwareConcurrency. This gives you back the number of cores in the CPU. And you can combine those values and make a decision if you want to show this fancy animation, if you want to show retina images or not. So this is quite good hints for you to make smart decisions so that every user gets something useful. There's another thing, interaction media features, which is CSS, and there you can also check now if script is supported, if hover is supported, or what kind of pointer the user is using. That's a little bit tricky, but if you see my slides later, I have always an info button left in the left corner. You can click on it and you find more info for this thing and dig deeper. So I don't give you deep insight, it's just ideas what you can do, but you have to do it yourself. Yeah. Okay, one thing which really bothers user experience is long-running JavaScript tasks. So this is a real problem. And this is only a problem if you have this device. You won't see it in your MacBook, so you can't fix it. And I guess everyone knows Google Chrome developer tools, at least developers. It looks like this, super complicated. What you should look for is red bars here, and you see the yellow part, this is JavaScript. And sometimes there's a red corner. And if you see the red corner, this means your JavaScript is running longer than 50 milliseconds. And what's the problem with this? The problem is if it's long-running JavaScript, it will proc your main thread. And at this point, the user can't do anything. So it's like a dead screen. You see the button, but you click on the button, nothing happens. And that's really worse if you just see don't see it, because you see it and it's not working for you. And so we really should take care of this. And there are also two new APIs coming around. It's a requestidleCallback. And this is something, it's like a queue for your JavaScript. So you could, if you have a JavaScript what's not have to run right now, you can queue it up, and what the browser is doing for you, it looks when there's time in the main thread, and the user is not doing anything, the browser knows this times, and then it's running your JavaScript. So you can really run it when it's not bothering anyone. Another thing is the IntersectionObserver. This is if all the marketing tools hooking up to the scroll event, and if the user starts scrolling, then a lot of JavaScript is running all the time. And this is also really, really bad. And with IntersectionObserver, you can change this. You don't need the scroll events anymore. You get notice, for example, if an element shows up in the viewport. You can use it for autoplay video if it comes into play. You can use it for lazy loading, and so on. And probably what you want to know, we had this New Relic talk before, what you can do, you can use Performance Observer, it's also a new API, to track this long-running task in all the devices and send it back to New Relic, and then you get a feeling. Then you can check how the users behave, which have like a long-running JavaScript task. This is quite insightful, because there are so many devices out there, and you have no clue what device users are using, and there you really know it. Okay, so we talked about Viewport. We fixed this before this talk. We talked about connection. We have found a solution, and also the device is quite nice. So what I ask you now is fight for every user. So you are the front-end developers, so you want to have the UX, the best UX for every user. You can do it, because the designers won't do it because they don't know of this. You just get one design, but as you see here, it makes often sense to send different experiences to different kind of users. And if you're not standing up in your project and ask for it, what you need, and also train the other people it won't happen. Okay, so I hope we have better UX in our projects in the future. And I would like to get feedback if you try out some things and it's working for you or not. I'm really interested because I'm not programming myself anymore. I really want to get feedback from you. That's it. Thank you very much.